Franchising is the most misunderstood and most overlooked form of entrepreneurship. We're here to educate you and help you find the entrepreneur within. Franchising is not all about the French fries.
We find that individuals who are exploring business ownership tend to have a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about the franchise industry. So what we want to do is help prospective business owners make confident and educated decisions before moving forward or not moving forward with a business. Welcome to Unpredicted Entrepreneur.
Hi, welcome to episode 88 of Unpredicted Entrepreneur. I'm Roxanne Rapsky, and this is my colleague, Sarah Wasco. We created this podcast to bring you education and information about business ownership and all things franchising. Our next guest is a Black Optix Galveston franchisee. His name is Erich Elmer, and we worked with him almost a year ago, or close to a year ago. And he's just getting ready to open his doors any minute now. So thank you for joining us, Erich, to share your story today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So let's jump right into your background. To give us a little bit about who you are and what you were doing and what gave you the entrepreneurial bug and had you reaching out to start looking at franchises.
Okay, so I grew up, both of my parents had their own businesses. My father had a machine shop that was actually in half of our house. So you walked towards the end of our hallway and opened the door and you were into a machine shop.
Wow.
And my mother had a travel agency. So I grew up, both of my parents having businesses. I worked in both of them extensively, spent a lot of time in the machine shop. And that's what led me to get a degree in engineering. And after I graduated, I actually I worked in industry for about 3 years and then came back and ran the machine shop for about 7 years before I decided to get back into industry. I've always had a side business, whether it was, selling car parts that I pulled out of pick and pulls. I'd sell them on eBay. I've done some antique selling, antique booths, in antique malls. And then for the past, 7 years before I moved to Galveston, I was living in Denver and I had rental cars, both on two of the major platforms. And so I had at one point, I had like 15 cars before I moved. So always been doing work on the side. And then at one point, then I decided that, my kids were done with college. It was time for me to figure out what the next step of my career was going to be. I'm a huge car person. I've always worked on cars and have enjoyed being around vehicles. So was looking at several different franchises, and the Black Optix franchise just really made sense to me. And that's how I made the decision to jump into that.
So interestingly enough, I think one of the things that was kind of on your target list was Big O Tires because you have a friend there, right?
Yes.
But when we met, you had already been looking at franchises and you had gone all the way down the path with a franchise that has nothing to do with automobiles. It was actually a mobility franchise for people that are elderly and disabled, right?
Yes.
And then we started looking at some things that involved cars. I forgot that you had the rental car business until you just brought that up. Have you sold all those now? Are you still doing that? Or is that?
No, I sold all of them. The platform I was using is not, they don't cover the Galveston market.
Oh.
And so I decided to sell all of them because they were not, I couldn't move those cars over to the other platform because of their age and the mileage. So I just sold them all and decided to really just focus on this business while I get it up and going. I will probably get back into the rental car business at some point. I just need to focus here on getting this shop open first. But yes, I did. I looked at several different companies, different concepts first. I knew I wanted to go into a franchise because of the operating systems that were already in place. For a first time, business. And so I purposely left out looking at automotive franchises until the end because I didn't want to get blinders on. And you're right, I did. I found a mobility franchise that I liked a lot. I found a franchise that did blinds that I liked a lot. And then decided to look into the automotive franchises. I do have a friend who has 3 Big O tire shops. And so and I use them a lot. I was always very happy with their business. And so I did start talking with them. And their requirement, though, was you needed to commit to them 100% and quit whatever current job you had. And the more I thought about it, once I ran across Black Optix Tint, was that it has a general manager model, so you can retain your current position while you start the business. And as an engineer, I'm always looking at ways to mitigate risk. And so that made the most sense to me, and really then made me make that turn towards Black Optix Tint.
But interestingly enough, I always tell my clients that you'll learn about yourself in this process and I'll learn from you, and together we'll figure it out. When we first started working together, you wanted to leave your job. In mid-process, you realized, well, I think in combination with moving, selling your house, your wife having to find a new job, I think Lisa was also risk averse and would really prefer, she wanted you to keep your job, right? So I think in the mid-process, that kind of became clear to you.
Yeah, very much so. And so, reality sets in, right? You set up what your ideal situation would be, and then you start working through that. And like I said, I realized, okay, it makes more sense for us to be able to retain my current job. And it's been going well. I've got plenty of time to do both. And like I said, it really preserves capital and it mitigates the risk. And the capital preservation is very important, as I've found, because this process that I originally thought was going to be done in just a few months is really taking much, much longer than I had anticipated. Mm-hmm. And so that capital that I would have been living off of is now I'm drawing into that bucket of money for operating expenses and remodeling expenses while I get open.
So tell us a little bit about what changed and why it's taken longer and why you had to dip into capital, because originally you were going to lease a space. So why don't you talk a little bit about what happened there and some of those learnings?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Galveston is an island. It's an old city. And it's not like where you can, a lot of places you can go and find really nice business parks, that have a lot of units for rent that are built together. We don't have that on the island. And there's not very many places for lease that are suitable for automotive, though there are an inordinate amount of automotive garages on the island, repair shops. They are all full. So properties don't come open for lease. One property that did come open that could have been used was it's in a commercial shopping center. Looked ideal. It's 6,000 square feet. I only needed half of that, but the owners didn't want to split that up. So here it sits a year later, and it still has no business in that corner spot. So I don't really understand the thought process behind that. But the other place that I found for potential leasing just needed a lot more work than I was comfortable with. And as a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, that building ended up getting torn down. So I then had to switch it and looking to purchase a building. And I found one, and luckily it's right on the main strip. Like, I couldn't ask for better exposure for traffic coming into town. It's next to an oil change place. It's across the street from an auto parts store.
Wow.
So it's really in a great location. I don't have any parking, but there's street parking available. So that works. But so I immediately, burned through a lot of my capital for a down payment that I hadn't planned on. And so the other thing that we ran into is I'm going through the SBA for my loan. And even though I was upfront and very clear with them that I owned my own business, owned the property that we were going to put the business in, for whatever reason, it didn't register with the loan officer I was working with. So as we got down to, I think this was in August, I bought the building in April, started working with the SBA bank, I think in May or June. So as we started in August getting ready to finalize everything, they realized that, I own my own building, and that put everything to a screeching halt. And it almost came to the point where the loan wasn't going to get approved because they didn't. I'm not real sure. So the reason they gave me was they wouldn't finance the remodel portion because they didn't want me to enrich myself by owning the building. But it doesn't really pass reasonability with me. But it is what it is. So we ended up, that pushed the loan back almost 6 weeks while they were trying to restructure it. And I've had to pay for the remodel costs out of my own pocket. And they're going to run, they started, I think our original thought was $50,000. And I think when it's said and done, we're going to be at around $60,000 or $65,000 with some changes I didn't see to accommodate the fire escape routes and the wind loading needed to be in a hurricane prone area.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think the summary of this story is, or maybe the moral of the story is, sometimes the best laid plans don't necessarily always work out. And I think kind of back to the conversation about keeping a job and leaving a job, et cetera, when you are searching and you found the right business, I mean, that's definitely something to keep in mind, because with brick and mortar, you just can't always plan. I mean, I think based on what you described, it was worth waiting for the building that you're purchasing, the location, but you had to overcome a lot of hurdles. And so of course, I guess you would not have necessarily quit your job until you got open, but where I'm going with this is sometimes people that are unemployed and looking for a business, opening a brick and mortar, they may not have the time. They may not have the bandwidth, the financial capabilities to wait as long as, it could potentially take, because some of that I try to share with people, they want to know a timeline, and it's just very, very unpredictable, as you can attest.
It is. And the other really unpredictable part has been the city. And I know Galveston is very interesting in how it's set up. And it turns out I'm not the only one in this boat. But for example, there's not a one-stop shop where I can find everything that's needed. Mm-hmm. And once I think I have the information and put it on a permit application and send it to the city, they come back to me with more questions which surprises me, because I would think everything should be on the permit. And a good example is my sign permit. So I bought this, I got a hold of the sign company, got a sign. They asked me if I had a permit, and I said, no, I didn't know I needed one. I didn't see anywhere on the city website that I needed a permit. So I looked, lo and behold, I did find it. I filled out the permit. One of the things the permit wanted was describe how the sign is attached to the building. Great. That's what I did. I said, it's the sign's made of this material. It's fastened into masonry using bolts. Just a nice, simple description. And so 2 or 3 weeks went by, and the city got back to me and said, they wanted engineering drawings regarding how the sign is fastened to the building. And that to me is, I'm being an engineer, when you say describe is how something is fastened, is vastly different than provide engineering drawings. So I don't know why the permit doesn't say provide engineering drawings if that's what they want. It certainly would have saved us some time. So now I've paid a company to get me engineering drawings. That's another 4 weeks before that comes. So while I've sat here, I've wasted 7 weeks on a sign when I could have made that, that would have been a lot quicker had that been on the application. I'm finding out I'm a member of the Rotary Club, that my experience is not unique, that every business owner I've talked to has the same story about working with the city. And I'll be upfront, the city is not asking me to do anything that I find unreasonable. It's just very inefficient with all the different departments that we have to go through and have to have the permits, and it takes a long time to work through all of that. I wish I had known other business owners to sit down and talk to before I went down that path, but I moved to a city. I didn't really know a lot of people, didn't know anybody that had a brick and mortar store. So just lessons learned as we are, moving down this path.
You all need to band together and help the next guy or gal going through that process, because that's a big learning curve.
I've actually had several people say you need to do a consulting business for people starting out to show them exactly what needs to be done. And to be honest, I'm not opposed to that. That's something I may well look into, because I would have gladly paid someone to get me through this maze of just giving me a packet saying, here are all the permits you need. That alone would have saved me so much time. Yeah. Because like I say, I turn around and say, I had my roof done, and then they turn around and said, do you have the WPI8, which is a windstorm a certification? And I said, nope, I didn't even know what that was, didn't even know it existed. So now I have to go back and do some more work on my roof, because the roof as it sits now is good for 130 mile an hour windstorm, but the spot that I'm on in the island needs to be able to withstand 150 mile an hour winds. And just a few blocks away, it's 130. So
wow,
it's been very
challenging.
It's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, and the money.
I'm a very, very patient person. So
yeah, you must be. The money that you would have invested potentially in getting all that information up front, as you said, could have saved time, and hopefully, your doors would be open and you could have made that up in business. So speaking of business, I know we've talked about Black Optix. It's actually Black Optix Tint. So tell us just a little bit about what the business does, and just a little bit about your experience as a franchisee, the support they provided you, and things like that through this whole process of hoping to get your doors open soon.
One of the things that really appealed to me with Black Optix Tint was everything that they offer. So it is a one-stop shop for all of your auto restyling needs. And the really nice thing about Black Optix Tint is they allow you to pick and choose what you want to offer. So everything that Black Optix Tint offers is obviously window tinting for automotive, but also commercial, residential, and marine. So we can do boats as well. We do vinyl wraps, audio, wheels, tires, suspensions, ceramic coating. I'm offering at my facility headlight restoration services. And so, there's some places, I think there's one shop that all he does is tint. He's a one-man show. He just does automotive window tint, and it works for him. I'm a believer that, and being a car person myself, it's not convenient to drop your car off to get a service done, and then I got to drop it off at another place. Let's say if I want to get it ceramic coated, or then drop it off at another place to get paint protection film on it. I want this to be very convenient for people. So they bring a new car in, they want the paint correction done, they want paint protection film put on, and they want new tint. They want tint on their new car. We can do it all in one place. We can get all that done in a day, and it's very efficient for them. There's nobody currently on the island. There is one shop that is doing some window tinting. There's nobody that's doing the full offerings that we have. There's nobody doing any audio on the island at all. So that's something that we're going to really get into in the February, March timeframe. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And that, like I said, that's one of the things that really appealed to me with Black Optix Tint, with the different things that you can choose to work on. We'll do Jeep and truck accessories. So running boards, tonneau covers, light bars, anything like that as well. What I really enjoyed with my discovery day with Black Optix Tint was getting to know the owner, Randall Moore, his brother, Mike Moore, that started this business. They're just fantastic people. They are genuine and real, and they really want you to succeed. I can get a hold of anybody within minutes, whether it's an email or a text, and I get a response back very quickly, which is great.
Great to hear. Really glad to know that you've been pleased. Have they been able to, I know every city is going to be different, but have they been able to provide you maybe some guidance or direction with some of these hurdles that you've been trying to overcome, getting your doors open?
They did put me in touch with the real estate agent that I used. And I believe he was the person that they used for the two shops that are in the Austin area. And he was extremely helpful. Here again, Galveston is a different entity than Austin. So as far as getting the permitting and those things through, I've kind of been on my own there, which is fine. I understand. But the real estate agent was very, very helpful in guiding me through, the Texas real estate laws. And I had never bought a commercial building before. So commercial real estate is a lot different than residential, which I'm very familiar with. I've moved like 8 times with my current job. So I've bought and sold a lot of houses, but a commercial building is completely different. So it was really helpful to have an expert in that area.
I'm glad you had the support. And I think you liked the training as well. You thought that was sufficient?
Very much so. We went up for 2 weeks training. We did a week training on tint. We did a few days on paint protection film, and we did a few days on vinyl wrapping. The trainer they have, we went out to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Toby was our trainer. Best trainer I've ever had. I've been in the corporate world working for a Fortune 300 company for 20 years now. And I've been through countless training sessions. And this gentleman was the best I've ever seen. Very patient, got the information across quickly. And it was just outstanding training.
And you have your employees hired, right? And they went to training with you?
Now, I do. Here again, I did my training back in October because I knew I was going to be open in November. Wow. So it was myself and 3 employees. One of my employees, unfortunately, was not a good fit. So we had to make a change there. And another employee of mine was actually the husband of my person who's doing my social media managing, and their business got really, really busy all of a sudden. So he left to work with her. So I'm down to 1 employee that I went through training with. Wow. I've hired 2 more, and we've been able to train them on site with no issues. Like, our training was so good that we've been able to turn around and provide that same training and so far it's gone really, really well.
Wow. And you're awesome. Still not officially open, right? You're waiting.
I am not officially open yet.
But by the time we release this, you should be, right?
I hope so. Yeah, that's the plan. Like I said, as soon as we get our a hot water heater in for the bathroom, I'm going to get the city to come in and give me an inspection. Hopefully they will give me a temporary certificate of occupancy once they see that, I have this other exit being installed next week. And we'll go from there. The things I still need to have done before I'm can apply for my permanent certificate of occupancy, I need to get my signs up. I need to get the roof completed. and this door put in. And I think that's all I have left then to be able to get my permanent certificate of occupancy. There may be some concern on their end with my sidewalk in front of the building. Even though the last business that was here didn't need to repair the sidewalk, they mentioned something like that. So we will see when we get to that point.
What a journey you've been through.
It's been.
Well, you've been so gracious to share your experiences with our listeners so that maybe their road to get a business open could be a little bit simpler, kind of having some of this knowledge that you've shared with us. Before we wrap up today, do you have one, final tip or piece of advice for a prospective business owner that might be listening today?
Yeah, I do. I've got a couple that I'll hit really quickly, and I'll glance at my notes here. One is, if you can, talk to some other business owners in your area to see what the permitting is like and what their experiences have been. Understand your fire code requirements, the Americans with Disability Act requirements. Every state's a little different. Insurance, especially if you're in a place where I am with hurricanes, high winds, they may require some extra requirements. Plan for at least 6 extra months of operating capital. Get involved in your local like Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, because you get a lot of contact then with other business owners. And the other really good resource that I've had is the Small Business Development Council. I believe every county has one. They did a lot of market research for me. I knew I was moving to Galveston. I just didn't know what business I was going to get into. So they did market research on painting companies that I looked at, blind companies, the access companies for disabled access, and then for also automotive. They did everything that's in the county, their sales, they have access to all that information. So it really gave you good insight into what your competition would be. I got a hold of them for the approved contractor list. So when you hire a contractor, do anything with the SBA, you have to have contractors that they've approved. And the Small Business Development Council had that list of contractors. They also are a huge source of information. So right now, the one in my county currently has 150 pre-recorded webinars online, from marketing to budgeting to starting a business, insurance, any of those things that you can take a look at. And they also have in-person classes. And I think right now they currently have 10 to 12 monthly in-person classes. The majority of these are free, and if they're not, it's just a very minimal cost. And the last thing that they provide are business advisors that you can actually go talk to in person. So that's a great resource that I didn't know existed. Roxanne turned me on to that, and so that's been a really great resource.
Well, that's a great plug for the Small Business Development Center. So thanks for bringing that up. They are a great resource.
They've done a great job.
Yeah, we partner with them nationwide. So I'm glad they were so helpful to you. I know what Erich's talking about is the IBIS report, which is that marketing report that they helped you with. So I'm glad that all worked out and they continue to be a resource for you.
Yeah, I looked at potentially getting into a painting company, and there were little over 200 painting companies in the county. And that doesn't count people who just, put paintbrushes in the back of their truck and go paint. So I was like, okay, we're not going down that path.
Yeah.
I don't mind competition, but that's a little crazy.
That's wonderful that you were able to get all that information to really make an educated and confident decision, which is exactly what we strive for with all of our clients. We are so grateful for your advice and time today. If anybody from Galveston happens to be listening to this podcast and might need some of your services, tell us where they could find you. Where are you located?
Yeah, so we are at 3111 Broadway in Galveston, corner of 31st and Broadway. They can reach out. I'm on Google. They can reach out and give me a call. I'm more than happy to help anyone there. And I just want to thank you for having me on, and a huge thanks to Roxanne for getting me through this and walking me through this experience. I originally had another franchise person who ghosted me quickly after giving me some businesses to look at. And so I just started down the path on my own and got introduced to Roxanne through an acquaintance. And it's just been just a really fantastic experience. So thank you for all the help you've given me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Erich. It was a pleasure.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Again, I'm Sarah Waskow, Waskow, and I'm joined by my colleague Roxanne Rapske, Rapske. Please look us up on LinkedIn. We are very active there. Follow our YouTube channel at FranNet of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma. And you can listen to Unpredicted Entrepreneur on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for joining us and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.